Happy New Year, everyone. We're so excited that you're here. On behalf of our pastors, want to thank you for being here and hope that everybody had a great time of Christmas with your family and also a great New Year. I had a great time. I appreciate, our pastors being so generous. I was able to have some time with our family, and I was able to see my dad after 2 years. We weren't able to see him. He was just kind of, waiting for the right time, waiting, for, getting a little bit more comfortable with being with more people. But finally he felt, we're going to get together. So that was a great time. So I pray that and hope that you also had a great time. And I want to share with you a scripture that our pastor shared with us about the new year. And it was yesterday. It says, the future, it's in the book of Haggai. It says, the future glory of this temple will be greater than the former. And this place will be known as the place of God, heaven's armies. And God has spoken. I am giving you a promise now while the seed is still in the barn, and while you have not yet harvested your grain. And you know what? This scripture is great because we are people of faith. We believe in the harvest before we even planted the seed. Before the seed is even in the ground, we believe that we're going to have a great harvest because we have faith and we are people of faith. And let it be so in your life. Let it be so in your family. Let it be so in your relationships, in your resources and finances. Let it be so in your whole life that you believe in the harvest before the seed is even in the ground. And let it be that way in your name. How many of you received that word and say, yes, I believe God is going to do great things this year in our lives. So today, I want to share with you something that God put in my heart to share, for the first Sunday of the year. And how many of you have already, done your resolutions? It's a very common to talk or to have resolutions, New Year resolutions. And maybe you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get to them, this time. And I've tried, different times of the year, but I haven't been able to accomplish them or finish them all. But this year, I'm going to have these New Year resolutions, and I'm going to work on them. Or maybe you are on the other side. You know what? I'm not going to do any New Year resolutions. I'm just going to, keep on working on the ones that I've already had in previous years. But whatever your case is, I want to mention just a few of the most popular resolutions, New Year's resolutions that have been in the last 2 or 3 years. You can Google them up and you find, some of the same. And, some of these are some of the top ones. Number one, exercise more. How many, raise your hand and say, yeah, that's mine. That's part of my resolutions. Number two, lose weight, right? Yeah, mine would be gain weight, right? I'm always, burning more than I intake. So maybe that's one of your New Year's resolutions. Number three, save money. Oh yeah, that's one of the things that I would say, yeah, we gotta, keep on doing that. How many of you have this one, number 4, in your list? Eat healthy, right? You know what? After Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, this sounds pretty good to me, right? And maybe this is one of the reasons why, gyms are always, packed in January, right at the beginning of the year. Maybe you've gone to the gym and you're like, man, where are all these people coming from? And I haven't seen them in a while, or, but this is a very common resolution. Number 5, learn something new. I like that one. I like that one. Number 5, I always want to learn something new, every year. It could be something, new that it just related to work or just on your personal growth. That's always something that sounds very interesting to me. Number 6, read more books. Maybe that's one of your resolutions. Number 7, this all made it to the top the last 2-3 years. Spend more time with family, right? That's another one. And these right here, 8, 9, and 10, I put them in here because this is some of the ones I personally put, in previous years. But I know also people that say, this is one of my resolutions. Read the Bible, right? Maybe read the whole Bible. Maybe read it again if you finished, reading the whole Bible, the one-year Bible with us. And you say, you know what, that was a great experience, be able to read the Bible together. Or if you maybe started but didn't finish, maybe that's the one for you. You can do it this year. Number 9, pray. Maybe that's one, I say, I need to start praying more. Or number 10, go to church more often, right? Whether online or in person, that's always good. And those are some of the most popular ones. New Year's resolution. And you may wonder, well, which one should I focus on, right? Because that's a lot of them. And part of the problem why we don't accomplish our resolutions and our goals sometimes is because we have too many, right? We got a lot of them that we got more to chew than that we can handle. So maybe you say, which one would be the most important, the priority, the ones I need to focus, because I can't do these, all of these. I rather focus on a few and be able to do them and accomplish them. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about a story about Jesus telling and answering a question about which of all the commandments, of all the things that we need to do, back in the day, and all the laws and the precepts and the commandments in the scripture, of all those, which one is the most important? And that's what we're going to focus today. So let's go to the book of Mark, chapter 12, 28 to 34. It says like this: one of the teachers of religious law was standing there listening to the debate. It's talking about, if you read the previous verses, there were Pharisees and Sadducees and teachers of experts in the law, the scribes, and they came to Jesus to ask him questions, but not because they wanted to find out and learn from Jesus. They wanted to ask Jesus questions to trap him into saying something that they can use against Jesus. They asked him about taxes, paying taxes to Caesar. They asked him about the resurrection. They asked him about, they gave him an example, a fictional example of a woman who had several husbands, and whose wife she's going to be in the resurrection. So they asked him several questions. And then this one right here, this expert in religious law, this lawyer, what we would call now a scribe, was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well. So he asked, of all the commandments, which is the most important? Of all the commandments. The Jews had about 615 commandments in the scripture. 365 of them were negative, thou shalt not, and 265 or 68 were thou shalt. So they had more thou shalt not, you must not do this, than those that you should do, that you must do this. So they had over 600 commandments. And one of the things that scribes and experts in the law, these lawyers back in that day, one of the things that they did for, I guess, some exercise and things that they always were trying to do was trying to bring the law into the simplest form. Try to put all of those things and say, which one is the greatest, which one is the most important, which one should we focus, which one would be first and greatest of all of them. And they would always work on bringing things to the simplest form, to the shortest way, to the most simple way that you can put everything. Now, that takes a lot of genius. When you know someone who can make things, hard things, and put them in a very simple way, you talk about a smart person, right? They have this genius to put complicated things into very simple terms, where you say, I get that, And when you're able to do that, man, that's a gift, that you're very smart, you're very capable, and that's what they were doing, because they wanted to always try, what's the simplest, shortest way that we can summarize all of the commandments, all of these over 615 commandments, which one is the most important? Jesus replied, the most important commandment is this: listen, O Israel, The Lord our God is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and all your strength. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. The teacher of religious law replied, "Well said, teacher. You have spoken the truth by saying that there is only one God and no other. And I know it is important to love him with all my heart and all my understanding and all my strength, and to love my neighbor as myself. This is more important than to offer all of the burnt offerings and sacrifices required in the law." Realizing how much the man understood, Jesus said to him, "You're not far from the kingdom of God." And after that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. So you see, they wanted to find out, okay, tell us if you are this great and awesome, teacher and rabbi, which one is the most important, right? Which of all of these are you going to say that this is important? Why? Because we want to trap you. We want to use what you say, because if you say this is the most important and you neglect these other ones, we can use that and say, oh, you see, he is now forgetting and neglecting all of these laws. Therefore, you are not a good teacher. You are not, a rabbi. You are not this, who you say you are. So they wanted to use that. Remember, this was people, scribes, teachers of the law, experts, lawyers, that's what they did. So they wanted to do that. So Jesus, the brilliance and genius of Jesus say, hey, I know what you're doing, but I'm going to respond to you. And I'm not going to fall in that trap, because I know what you're doing. And Jesus his answer referred to one confession or Hebrew prayer called the Shema. The Shema was a confession or prayer that Jews did daily in the morning and in the evening. He took them back to listen, or Israel. As a matter of fact, the Shema is the first Hebrew word for hear. It means hear. Listen, hear, O Israel. And that's why they call it Shema. And Jews, even today, they pray this in the mornings and the evenings. We had the privilege of going to Israel, and we've seen that. How they pray in the mornings and the evenings. This is the Shema. They also wear them. When you see the Orthodox Jews walking in the streets in Jerusalem, they wear these little leather boxes on the foreheads and also in their arms. They're called phylacteries. And inside they have little tiny papers of scriptures, and they have this, the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That's what Jesus was talking about. So he took them back all the way to something that they knew. And the Jewish, they pray this in the morning and the evening. It's a confession that they do daily. And it's based on Deuteronomy 6, 4-6. If you look it up, you're going to find exactly those words, the Shema. That's where it's come from. But Jesus not only says the Shema, he also includes one more thing, Leviticus 19:18, that says, hey, don't hold a grudge or take revenge against your neighbor, but love your neighbor as you love yourself. I am the Lord. That's the one that Jesus added. So he said, hear, O Israel, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, these two commandments embody the entire law. So the expert, the scribe, the lawyer, he was so amazed by that answer. He said, yeah, you have spoken right. That's what it is. Because Jesus, in his genius, he simplified the entire law in these two commandments, because they embody the entire law. When we get these two commandments right, we get the rest of them right. In other words, Jesus is saying, hey, if you're going to look at all the 615 commandments, if you get these two, you get credit for all the other 613. That's a pretty good deal to me, a great deal. Imagine you're taking a test And a lot of you have had that experience of taking a long test, right? Whether it be a final exam, maybe a test to go into a certain program. And those tests last for a long time. I remember taking the SAT. I remember taking, the GRE to go into my master's program. And man, they take like half a day, right? And they have lots of questions. And you even, I remember taking a little lunch, to take a break in the middle of the test. But imagine if they tell you, out of all of these 100 and something questions, if you get these 2, you get credit for the entire test, right? You're like, wow, that's a pretty good deal, man. I love that. I only get these 2 right, and I can get everything right. So Jesus was telling them, hey, if you get this right, you get everything else correct. You're going to be right on spot. Imagine that you're missing, several payments in your car, and they're about to repo your car. And they say, hey, don't worry about it. If you only make these 2 payments, your whole debt's going to be canceled. You're going to take care of all the rest of the payment. You're like, oh, man, I can take care of those 2 payments. So Jesus was saying, hey, when you get these 2 right, you get everything else right. So Jesus, in his brilliance, in his genius, he put it together and say, I'm going to give it to you. You want to know what's the greatest? Here it is. And he puts it in that first and greatest commandment. Now, this is also flowing. Jesus was doing all the law. For example, the 10 commandments. We have our love for God, which are the first 4 commandments. And then we have our love for, our love for others. I'm sorry, that's a typo. This is our love for others. So the first 4 is our relationship to God, our love for God. And then the other 6 are our relationship to others. So Jesus was saying, if you get these 2, you get everything right. If you make sure that you work on this and you fulfill these 2, you're going to fulfill the entire law. And that was the beautiful thing about the Jesus answer. Hey, here it is. You want to trick me into saying something that you can use against me? I'm going to give to you the simplest form, what the law is all about. Love for God and love for others. Focus on that thing. So as we focus on, Lord, in this new year, 2022, what do you want me to focus? What do you want me to put my attention? What are some resolutions, goals, things that I need to accomplish or do and pay attention this year? I'm sure you've thought about that, in the beginning of the new year. Say, hey, what do I want this year to be? What do I want it to be? What do I want to do? What are some of the things that, God, I really need to focus on? What should be my priorities for this year? And instead of worrying about all the other ones we mentioned at the beginning, right? Lose weight, this and that, save money. Those are good. Everything else is good. And that's something that Jesus didn't exclude all the other laws. He just simplified them and say, okay, LifeChurch, I know you have a lot of resolutions. I know you have a lot of goals, and every case is different. Every situation is different. But if you get these 2, you get everything right. If you focus on these 2, you're going to get the rest of the year right. It's going to be good. These 2. So how does this apply to me today? 4 things I want to share with you. Number 1, Jesus' emphasis was on you must, not on you must not. Now, if I want to put it in King James Version, right, I would say that his emphasis was in the you shall, not in the you shall nots. In other words, when you get the must right, you don't worry about the must not. What is Jesus, saying here? Because when you look at it and you read about it, Jesus answered and he says, you must love the Lord your God. You must, right? He didn't start by saying you shouldn't do this, You should not do this. And a list of all the negative things. Jesus moved beyond the negativity. And he says, I want you to focus on the things that you can do. I know that you've had a lot of things, and maybe you don't have as much as other people. Maybe you don't think that you're good enough, or you're not smart enough, or you don't have enough money, or that you're not good as a dad, or the best wife, or the best whatever. But Jesus is saying, I don't want you to focus on what you can't, and what you don't have, and what you shouldn't do. I want you to focus on what you can do, on what I can do through you. I don't want you to focus on all the negative things in your life. I want you to focus on doing the things right. The things I want you to do. Focus on those things. Don't focus on the shall nots. I'm going to tell you, this is what you shall do. This is what you must do. So Jesus changed the order of things. Instead of talking about, the negative things, or the things that you lack, or the weaknesses in your life, or the problems and the deficiencies and all those things that you see and say, yeah, you see, God, that's why I can't do this. I say, hey, don't focus on that. Well, I try to be a good dad, but I don't know. It's not working. I know, but don't focus on that. Don't, put your eyes here. Well, I tried working on my relationship, my marriage last year. I didn't see a lot of change. I don't think I'm cut out to be a good husband, a good wife. Hey, don't focus on that. Focus on here. Move beyond all the negativity and God says, focus on what you must, on what you can, on what you have, on what I have for you, on what you got going for you. There are things that are good going for you. Why? Because if God is for us, who can be against us? I can put it, in your personal, in a personal way. If God is for you, who can be against you? So Jesus comes and he says, hey, I don't want you to focus on those things. Well, Pastor, you don't know my story. Well, I don't know. God knows. And he says, focus on these things. Well, Pastor, I had a difficult upbringing. There was a lot of dysfunction in my home. I know. But focus on here. Focus on this. This is what I want you to focus. I'm not talking about the shall nots. I'm not talking about you shouldn't do this and you should, and a list of all these don'ts. I'm talking about the things that you should do. In a world of thou shalt nots, Jesus' priority was the thou shalt, that you must, that you will, the things going for you. You get more of what you focus on. So in your relationships, if you focus on the negative things, you're going to get more of it. I remember a time when, in our parenting, when our kids were younger, we would focus on, hey, don't do that. Hey, I want you to do this. And hey, make sure you, and then we started noticing that we were talking, to them, to our kids, and we would tell them, hey, I don't want you to do this and that. And maybe that sounds familiar. We talk about don't do drugs, don't do this, and don't smoke, and don't do, all of these things, don't have sex. And we tell them all the don'ts. And we noticed that we were talking about more on the shall nots to our kids. And we say, wait a minute, we're going to change this. We need to talk to them more about what they should do, about the things that we want them to do. Because after a while, we notice, little kids, we notice them that whenever we would talk to them, it would sound, and we noticed that they felt like if we were trying to catch them doing something wrong. We would ask them like, hey, do you know where this is? It's like, why? And we were like, what's going on? I'm just asking out of pure, sincere question of, hey, what happened to this? And everybody started getting, in defensive mode, in that well, I don't know, And we noticed that, and you know what? We're going to focus on the positive things, on the things that we should do, the things that are going for us and for your family. And we started changing that. Why? Because we started noticing what we focus on, we get more of. If you focus in your marriage, and all the things that are not going right, all the negative things, all the bad things, that's what we're going to get more. You're going to be so, jaded, and anything you ask, it's going to be like, why do you ask God? Am I in trouble? That's one of the things that we notice our kids when they were younger. We would ask some question, and they would say, why? Am I in trouble? Right? Did I do something wrong? And we changed that. And in our spiritual life, something like that happens too. When we approach God, we start feeling like, God, I'm going to, I'm getting closer to you, and I want to, but I feel like you're right there, and you just, it's like thinking that God is going to catch us doing something wrong. So we're always kind of walking on eggshells. Instead of enjoying the Christian life, growing in our faith, resting in the fact that God, our Father, loves me, and He wants to be with me, and He likes me, I was more like feeling like this. So I started thinking, you know what? I need to change that. God loves me. And some of you need to change that too. Instead of looking at God as an angry judge, trying to just say, okay, that's what you went wrong. That's what you did wrong. Instead of looking at Him as an angry judge, we should always remember, start looking at Him as a loving Father. It's a loving Father. He loves you. So focus on those things that are going right. As a father, as a mother, as an employee, as a business owner, in your relationships, in your spiritual life. What you get more of what you focus on. And that's why Jesus said, you must love. I'm not going to tell you all the must, you must not. First, I want you to know you must. Number 2, and this is something that really, it just really blew my mind. When I was just thinking on these, the first and greatest commandment, how Jesus answered. He tells them, you must love the Lord, but also Jesus says it in this tone, in this way. It's a command. Jesus says, you shall love, you must love. He didn't say, well, I'm going to ask you to love God. It would be a good idea to love God. If maybe, it's, something good if you want to, an option. No, see, Jesus says, you must love. You must love. I order you and command you, you love God. You're like, wow, I didn't know that love could be legislated, It's like, I command you to love. Imagine, that would have been great when I was in high school or junior high. I see the girl I like, it's like, hey, I command you to like me, right? To love me, oh yeah, I didn't know love could be legislated, but Jesus says, I command you to love. Wait a minute. It sounds like an oxymoron, It's like, I thought love was freely given, something that it was out of your, free will. Yes, it is. But also Jesus says, I command you to love God. But why? It sounds like, how is, it doesn't sound too loving, right? When you command me to love someone. But Jesus said it. You shall love. You must love. He puts it in an imperative, in a command, an order to say, you will, you shall. I command you to love God. When God commands it, it means it is within our power to do it. It would be very unfair of God to command us to do something we are not able to do. Think about that. And I said, wow, this is beautiful and powerful. And this is, wow, Jesus said, I command you to love God. Well, God, wait a minute. Well, what if I don't feel like it? I command you to love. Amen. Well, what if I, I command you to love. But, what if if I can't, I command you to love. Why? Because if Jesus commanded, He knows you can do it. You're able to do it. I would not ask you to do something that you're not able to do. I would not even ask you to do something that's impossible to do. I'm commanding you to love God because you can love God. It's in your power. within you. You are able to, but God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, or what if I mess it? Command you to love God. It's a command. It's not a suggestion, not an option. It's a command. Why? Because God knows that it's within your power, my power, we're able to do this. He knows. Sometimes we don't even know that we are able to do something. Sometimes it takes other people to say, hey, you got this. You can do this. And many times I've experienced this. When I think, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I have the ability or if I'm good at this. And then other people have come and say, hey, you got this. And then when you do it, it's like, hey, that's right. I can do this. My wife has been, key and always supportive in that area. She's been, always pushing me and say, honey, you got this. Honey, you can do it. There was a time in our lives, early in our marriage, when I thought, you know what? I don't know what, if I can, go out there and start, moving on or doing something that our calling, our purpose. And one day, my wife said, honey, what's the matter? I was really sad, really low. And she said, what's going on? You look like you're down. I said, yeah, I was at a really low point in my life personally. And I told her, I'm struggling. I don't know if I got what it takes to be a man, to be, a man here in this house, in our marriage, to be the husband. I don't know if I got what it takes. And then I remember that time, we were sitting in the living room, and my wife said, look at me. I believe in you. It's like, oh, I don't know. You say this because you're my wife. And I said, no. I believe in you. You can do this. You got what it takes. And I was like, no, I would say, yes, you do. But I don't think nobody's going to even, be interested in me. Or, I was applying for jobs and all of that. And I said, honey, she said, if I were an employer, I would hire you. I'm like, and that really, it really took in a different note. And I said, really? She said, yeah. And then she started saying all the things that she saw in me. It's like, oh, wow, I would want someone like that. So she saw in me something that I didn't see. God sees you and says, you got this. You can love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And you say, I know it because this is what the Bible says. Look, it says in Philippians 2:13, for God is working in you, giving you the desire, and not only the desire, but also the power to do what pleases Him. You see, this is powerful. God is working in you, giving you not just the desire to do it, but also the power to do it. If God commands it, it's because it means we can do it. We're able to do it. Number 3, love for God and love for others cannot be divided. This person, this expert in religious law, the lawyer came and said, I'm going to trick Jesus. And when he's, whatever he says, I'm going to be able to dissect it and use it against him. But Jesus answered, and he said, you love God. Oh, yeah, we love God. They were so good in just being so pious, and they love the adulation of others. They love that, right? Oh, yeah, we love God. Look at all our rituals and ceremonies, and look at the way we dress and how much we devoted ourselves to the law and all of that. And Jesus said, yeah, but also you shall love others. You must love others. And then he added something new, and as you love yourself. Jesus was telling me, yeah, you love God and you love others. You cannot separate these two. 1 John 4:21, and he has given us this command. Those who love God must also love their fellow believers. You see? We cannot separate our love for God and our love for others. They go hand in hand. One has to flow naturally out of the other one. I cannot say I love God and say, I hate you, or I hate that person. If I love God, I will love my neighbor too. If I love God, I'm going to love others too. Even that person that gets on your last nerve. You're like, oh, God, I don't know. And you know you have that person right now in your mind. You're like, yeah, even that person, I have those too, right? And it's not in here in this, right now in this service. I don't know. Maybe it'll come in the third service, right? We don't have a third service, so. But even that person that gets on your last nerve, right? That's that nerve that needs to be redeemed and rebaptized, Even that person, you say, I command you to love others. I command you to love others. We will love others best when we love God the most. And this is something that can help us. And it will help not only in your personal life, but in every relationship you have, in your marriage relationship, in your friendships, with your daughter, with your son, with your children, in your at work. When you love others, you will love others best when we love God the most. When we get these two right, we're able to say yes, and I will love others. And I can love others as I love myself. Now, Jesus added that as you love yourself, because it's not just talking about others like, oh yeah. No, it says as you love yourself. Why? Because there's a healthy concern for our soul, our spirits, and our bodies. Right? I'm not talking about self-help and loving ourselves and being egotistical and self-centered. It's not about that. It's talking about, hey, God, I love you and I love others, including me. And when you love yourself in that healthy way, you're going to be able to love others. You're going to be able to love others. Why? Because sometimes, the most critical people, the people who are very critical on others, a lot of the times it's because they're very critical on themselves. A lot of, I've noticed, during my years that some people are very judgmental because they're very judgmental on themselves. They have a hard time forgiving because they have a hard time forgiving themselves. So you see, there's a healthy understanding that, God, you love me and you love others, right? Including me. Loving others as you love yourself. When we love God, we will experience His love within us, and we'll express His love to others. The entire law is fulfilled in this one word. You must love. That's it. That word, Romans 13:8-10, it says, owe nothing to anyone except for your obligation to love one another. If you love your neighbor, you will fulfill the requirements of God's law. For the commandments say, you must not commit adultery. You must not murder. You must not steal. You must not covet. These and other such commandments are summed up in this one commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to others, so love fulfills the requirements of God's law. One flows naturally out of the other. When we love God, we love others. When we have a right relationship with God, then we'll be able to have a right relationship with other people. It'll revolutionize, it will heal, it will transform and change all of your relationship when we get this right. When we love God and have a loving relationship with God, then we'll be able to have a loving relationship with everybody else, with our neighbor. And number 4, this is the last thing as we finish. Jesus' first and greatest commandment. He said, and you shall love, you must love God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. His first and greatest commandment. The way that He simplified the entire law, He's asking for 100% of us. So if this year you're wondering, wow, I got great resolutions, great goals, I'm excited about it. God, what should I focus on? Why should I really, hone in and say, okay, of all the things that I want to do this year, what should I focus on? What should my priority be? I think Jesus has answered that today, church, with this, story and these verses. Out of all the goals and resolutions, out of all the things we want to accomplish, out of all those things for this year, if you get these two right, you got the whole year covered. Love God. But don't love Him just with a little bit of you. God is asking 100% of us, of you and me. He didn't ask for a fraction of you. He didn't just love portions of you. He doesn't just love the good things, the good side of you. He loves all of you. Jesus didn't come to save a portion of you. So we shouldn't offer just a portion of our lives back to Him. Jesus' commandment says, I want you to love God. But He's asking for 100% of us. So this year, I want us to get that, take that home and say, Jesus, I want to work on all of these goals and resolutions. But the one thing I want to get right this year is to love you with all of my heart, all my soul, all my mind, all my strength, with everything I have, with 100% of me, and love others as I love myself. That's what I want to do. So I want to invite you to close your eyes as we finish. Jesus is asking for 100%. And how can I love God with all of my heart? Pastor, how can I love God with all of my soul in that way that Jesus said, with all of my mind and with all of my strength? How can I love God that way and give Him 100% of me this year? The answer is in surrendering all to Jesus. Surrendering all. And that's the beginning of giving Him 100%. Why? Because when we surrender, we let go of whatever it is we're trying to hold on to, and we just say, God, I let go and I give it to you. Everything belongs to you. My mind, my emotions, my thoughts, my actions, every step I take, every decision I make, Father, I will surrender it to you. My goals, my ambitions, my aspirations, my goals and hopes for the future, I surrender all to you, Jesus. I want to give you not just a portion of me. I want to give you 100% of me. And I want to love you this way with all of my heart, mind, soul, and strength. So right now, that's the way that we can do that. Surrendering all. This is the first Sunday. And I think it's a good time to say, Jesus, I'm starting my year with surrendering everything to you. Surrendering my whole life, my whole being. That's the way I want to love you. Help me not to give you just a fraction of me. Sometimes I try to hold on to things and say, I don't know if I can give this over to you. Well, Jesus said, hey, give it all. Surrender it right now. This is the best time. Beginning of a new year. 2022 can be very different than last year when we surrender everything and love God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's how we want to start this year. God, we surrender to you.